Good morning and welcome to the first ever Pivot event. Allow me to start this morning with a question. Have you ever thought about something that could revolutionize your country or the world, but it's so big or so seemingly out of reach that it scared you? You think that would never happen, or it's just too big and ambitious to ever be a reality? Well, those big ideas are exactly what the Pivot movement is all about. It's a movement fueled by ambitious ideas, or as we call them, moonshots, that have the power to transform the Caribbean. And those ideas come from future makers like you. My name is Golda Lee Bruce, and I am the communications coordinator within the IDB Caribbean Country Department. We have a lineup of dynamic speakers standing by to welcome you to the Pivot event and to inspire you as you begin your work over the next 2 weeks. We invite you to review the speaker bios that we have sent along with your invitations. Therese Turner-Jones is the visionary leader of the IDB Caribbean team. As a trained economist, Ms. Turner-Jones has spent decades working to develop the Caribbean in various capacities. She now drives an agenda to achieve digital transformation, climate resilience, and innovation in the region. Please welcome General Manager of IDB Caribbean, Therese Turner-Jones, to welcome you. Therese?
Thank you, Golda, and thank you everyone for being here. It's a very exciting moment for me. I was up at 2 o'clock this morning thinking, am I prepared? Am I ready for this event? It's very exciting, and so allow me to first begin by welcoming you on behalf of our new president, Mauricio Clavicaron, who wanted to be here, but unfortunately couldn't be here. But for those of you who've heard some of his comments already about his goals and vision for the region, they include digitalization, building more entrepreneurs, nearshoring, creating more jobs for people of Latin America and the Caribbean. So I'm very excited to bring these remarks on his behalf. And of course, these ideas of the president are very much aligned with the Pivot movement. And I think they're signaling for us a very important moment in the bank where the private sector takes a huge important role. And also we know that this is significant for the Caribbean. So Pivot is a movement of really bold ideas with the potential to transform life in the Caribbean. It is a challenge to the people of the region to stretch beyond our physical and mental boundaries and allow ourselves truly to think big. We have known for some time that in order to survive, the Caribbean must change. The present crisis, of course, reminds us of this urgent reality. But our change, our pivot, must be coordinated and focused for it to be effective. We've created this movement, the Pivot movement, to achieve the goal together. Creating a resilient and sustainable future for the Caribbean is not the job of any one person or institution. We are all responsible for achieving this reality together. So as you fully engage over the next 2 weeks in this Pivot event, remember 2 things. We are building big and we're working together. In this inaugural event, we've chosen to focus on the themes of electric mobility, digital transformation, and reimagining tourism, because of the exponential effect that development of these sectors can have on the way we live and work. And we know from the hundreds of submissions to our idea search that you have also been thinking about these pivotal areas. The Pivot event allows us to build on these ideas together in real time. We're honored to have the region's leading minds committed to this mission with us. And as we go into this virtual space, you're encouraged to always keep the core values of the Pivot movement at the forefront. Think big and work together. Leave your doubts at the door and consider yourselves as acting on behalf of all Caribbean people, designing a future that makes life better for everyone. It is our intention for the ideas generated in this event to be used in the creation of a plan for the Caribbean for the next decade at a minimum. And therefore, the goals of building resilience and creating international linkages are key. Every idea you develop together in this event should take us closer to climate, social, and economic resilience. Your ideas should also be developed in the context of international opportunities and partnerships. We are citizens of the Caribbean region, but we're also citizens of the world. And the opening of the digital space allows us to share so much more of our innovation and influence with the world. Finally, I would like to thank everyone who's made Pivot a reality. Thank you to our partners, the Caribbean Climate Change Accelerator, Singularity University, and Destination Experience. Thank you to the presenters at this morning's launch. Our champion Prime Minister, Mia Mottley, who I wish I could have every day of my life in an event with IDB, but she has other duties. Our visionary, Sir Richard Branson, and our leader for this event, Dr. Jose Mori. Thank you to the team of facilitators from Singularity University. And I want to thank the IDB team who's been behind this, making the Caribbean department look really innovative and impressive, and starting with my front office team. And I think all of you know, most of you know who these people are. But I want to just say that I have an extraordinary team working with me, and I want to make a big shout out to them. And most importantly, thank you all for committing your time and innovative ideas to the Pivot event. Let's pivot together. And I'm really anxious to hear from the Prime Minister. Thank you very much, and others this morning. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that warm welcome, Therese. And thank you also for reminding us of the main principles of this Pivot movement, which are to think big and to work together as we do. Prime Minister, the Honorable Mia Mottley of Barbados, is a dynamic and bold Caribbean leader, well known and respected internationally for her advocacy on behalf of small developing states, specifically related to climate change and access to development finance. Prime Minister Mia Mottley is the perfect exemplar to open this event that seeks to harness brilliant ideas in service to the Caribbean. Welcome, Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Mottley.
Thank you very much, Golda, and I want to say hello to everyone who was on the seminar this morning. Let me tell you, there's a barrier I was born into. There's a barrier that every small islander inherits, especially after colonialism. It is the barrier of self-contempt. You're a little place. You're not metropolitan. You wouldn't send men to the moon. You wouldn't invent the latest, greatest computer. And you're not making any destructive weapons so you can kill the next man and take all his property and call it yours. You're a little island. So you're born into a situation where you feel lesser than other people, and it's called self-contempt. But once I began to shed my self-contempt after the power of this thing we call mass was revealed to me, it becomes a mission of mine to help people shed this self-contempt. Because some people still don't understand that the things that we do best are worthy of hallelujahs. I start with the words that aren't mine. But those are the words of the iconic Guyanese Trinidadian massman, Peter Minshall, a god to many. Minshall is undoubtedly one of the Caribbean's greatest creators. For his carnival work, yes, but more for his art direction. This quote is from an interview that he did in 1995, just under 1 year after I became Minister of Culture, 1 year after I entered into the cabinet of Barbados, which came after he had already directed, by the way, the opening ceremonies of the 1992 Barcelona Olympics and the 1994 FIFA World Cup. He would go on to create the opening ceremonies for the 1996 Atlanta Olympics, the 2002 Salt Lake Winter Olympics, and the 2007 Cricket World Cup, with which I had the honor to work with him personally. Peter Minshall personifies world class. He is in the business, my friends, of the moonshots of which I spoke. While Minshall's artistic license frees him up to use terms such as self-contempt to describe the Caribbean's underdevelopment, my technical sensibilities draw me to the more balanced phrasing of cultural confidence, or more to the point of lack of cultural confidence. From political unrest to gun violence to bleaching of skins, the root of so many of our current regional problems boils down, I believe, to issues of identity and lack of cultural confidence. And that is why in our own covenant of hope, we literally put as the first chapter, identity and confidence. Because without that, we will go nowhere. That's why on my phone, I carried a picture of, of the late great Robert Nesta Marley to remind me of two phrases: emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. And of course, what does it profit a man to gain the world and to lose his soul? Neither of those statements are original to Bob, but Bob understood the power of amplification with respect to them. He understood what it would do to our identity and to our cultural confidence. He understood that he was speaking each day and every day to that little boy and that little girl going into primary school, going into secondary school. At the end of the day, I ask us, who are we? What makes us? How do we solve our own problems? What is our purpose? What is the value of our contribution? As a region, we had all of this and so much more to consider. And then, boops, comes COVID. But you will forgive me, as an eternal optimist and an unwavering believer in the capacity of Caribbean people, I do not see identity issues as irreversible character flaws, nor do I see COVID-19 as an insurmountable challenge, nor do I believe that cultural values and cultural mores don't change. 50 years ago, we didn't play banjo on a Sunday. What is banjo, you ask? Any kind of music that is not hymns or gospel. But now throughout the region, that has changed. Some will argue change for the worse, some will argue change for more tolerance. But whatever it is, the point is cultural values and cultural mores change. So rather, I see this simply as part of a process of our development. I see it as part of our growing up, as part of the recognition that as adults, we make choices and there are consequences to choices. And to that extent, our family, our parents, our extended family, and our community must help nurture us in the choices that we have to make. We have moved, my friends, beyond our tenuous toddler and moody teen years, where we were dependent on others for basic needs, beyond the rebelliousness of young adulthood and the stabilizing middle-age period. And now, like many 40 to 60-year-olds, we in the Caribbean are in a period of resilience and smart investment to secure our future. For countries, just like with humans, this natural cycle of development, of maturing and of overcoming difficult periods cannot be successfully achieved without first addressing some hard truths. As I say to my people in Barbados all the time, you can't expect to be an adult without having difficult conversations. That's just life. The hard truth is that the Caribbean exited colonialism without the benefit of a development pact. I've been saying so every day for the last few months. Why? Because the whole Black Lives Matter movement has literally reinforced in us the need to examine who we are and how we have gotten where we are. This truth resonates particularly deeply with me in this year, which marks, within a few days, the 75th anniversary of the United Nations founding on October 24th. Our eldest regional siblings, Jamaica and Trinidad, are only 58 years old. Thus, the rules of engagement were established well before we became sovereign states, and yet they have not been extended to us in full. Still, even without the input and resources that were afforded to many European and Asian states by multilateral bodies, the Caribbean region has done a commendable job in providing for the needs of its people. We're not where we want to be, but we've done a lot to come from where we were in that 1930s moment that literally scarred our landscapes from the north right down to the south. For us in the Caribbean, the hard truth is that in the last 40 years, our dependency has transitioned from one vulnerable sector, agriculture, to another vulnerable sector, as we now know so well, tourism. Though operationally vastly different industries, the macro analysis presents, unfortunately, similar traits: volatile products, highly fluctuating seasonal revenues, global marketplaces that dictate our prices, and high susceptibility to hurricanes, and now, as we know, pandemics. But may I also say, the hurricanes really represent only the heart attacks. of the climate crisis. We face the chronic NCDs in so many ways, not just in terms of our bodily health, but in terms of the climate crisis, namely the droughts and indeed the sargassum that continue to bedevil those who depend on coastal businesses to make their living. The hard truth, my friends, is that Peter Minshall is right. The Caribbean has not, regrettably, been in the business of moonshots sufficiently. Our region, in an age of rapid and bold digital innovation globally, has been slow to digitize and timid to innovate. Not all, but not across the scale. It's not a bad place. Indeed, for the most part, it is a very good place for us to live. You and I know that. But without the safety net afforded to other countries, we have been hesitant to strive to be the best or the first in this region. Our governments, our financial institutions, our schools, our churches, and our agencies have been regrettably too hostile to risk and resistant to new actions and new ideas. But why? I ask you why. After all, this is the region that produced George Headley, C.L.R. James, Errol Barrow, Kincaid, Eric Williams, Robert Nesta Marley, Sir Arthur Lewis, Brian Lara, Derek Walcott, Naipaul, Armour Trading, Viv Richards, Shirley Chisholm. I could go on and on. Usain Bolt, the Right Excellence of Gary Sobers, and of course our own Robin Rihanna Fenty. We are a region that has already solved some of the most difficult of the so-called developed world's problems with our universal education. People don't talk about it. Our universal education, our universal health care, people don't talk about it. Our stable political system, people take it for granted. Our freedom of choice and social partnerships, hardly ever mentioned. We are a place of critical, creative thinkers. We like to abuse one another and we like to use colorful language. We are revolutionaries in our own way. We are inventors, artists, and pioneers. We have already produced the best and we've already been the first. But why do we resist scale? Why do we not understand that scale is at the heart of transformation? How as a collective can we not put our own perspective and flair on this digital revolution? My friends, simply put, how can we pivot? I suspect that you, like most of the Caribbean youth of today, already know the answer. The future of the world, and by extension, our future, the future of the Caribbean, is largely in technology. In 1994, when I became Minister of Education and Youth and Culture, I reflected then that we were in a position where we could literally use technology, not for its own sake, but deeply use it as an embedded engine of every sector of our region. I asked us then to remember that it was a powerful tool, but in so remembering, to remember that it did not alter the essence of who we are, because who we are is determined by our values, and our values determine how we use that tool. True prosperity and transformation, my friends, will not come from Caribbean technologies until we have the cultural confidence that Peter Minshall exhibited when he put stilt walkers at the Barcelona Olympiad. We must have the cultural confidence to develop technologies of our own kind on a timeline that plays to our strengths and which captures the imagination of our own people. We must become a developer of ideas and technologies that allow us to overcome the everyday disadvantages of being a small island developing state. That will allow us to overcome our small population, our small economy, our vulnerability to natural disasters, and our very difficult history of slavery and colonialism. The late Professor, the Right Honorable Owen Arthur, former Prime Minister of Barbados, once asked, in what sense is McDonald's superior to a fish fry at Oistins? Or in what sense is jerk pork in Jamaica inferior to McDonald's? Or Laba and Creek water in Guyana? Why should we yield on the preservation of our cultural icons, that traditional way of life inherent in small states, which is so relaxing and rewarding, and which makes living in a small state such an unforgettable experience to become just another cultural and social statistics. Those were Owen's words. COVID-19 and its impact on our tourism-dependent economies means the time is now for regional governments to develop and implement disruptive and forward-thinking program concepts, policies, and platforms that fast-track the development of a Caribbean technology economy. At the core of this, my friends, transformation must be the sustainable maximization of our most highly valued assets. You know them, and I know them. Our people, our ideas, our geography, our climate, yes, our climate, and our culture. It is only when we increase our cultural confidence and thus maximize the power of our creative imagination that we will be able to build technologies that unlock our region's true potential. We will begin to see that because we are surrounded on all sides by the sea, SEA, our ocean economy is primed for expansion. We will begin to see that our lack of scale steers us to focus on producing quality rather than quantity, thus enhancing our high-value manufacturing sector and what ought to be a propensity for research and development. We will also see that the constant threat of hurricanes makes us global experts, yes, in the business of climate resilience. My friends, in the immortal words of that great Trinidadian luminary, C.L.R. James, I quote, "Nobody knows what the Caribbean population is capable of. Nobody has ever attempted to find out," unquote. I say the duty is ours together to pivot right now to find out what that capable Caribbean person is about and what capacity our region is capable of. And I ask us to do so in the words of Therese just now, that we do so by thinking big and working together, because only then will we have the scale and will we have the capacity to transform what I believe is that special place on earth. We have been that region that has led the world in humanization. We have been that region that has continued to focus on the centrality of that individual person. We have been that region that has sought more for social justice. We can be that region that explores new possibilities and new realities for the 21st century for the globe. It's not just about Africa. It's not just about Asia leading the world. The Caribbean has the potential to be that entity and that region that can continue to point the way. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Prime Minister Mottley, for your very inspiring words. I hope that we will be able to shed the inhibitions of self-contempt and instead choose the treasure of cultural confidence as we make our moonshots together. Thank you again. Respected the world over for his visionary entrepreneurship, Sir Richard Branson is the founder of the Virgin brand, which is now 40 companies worldwide, employing approximately 71,000 people in over 35 countries. As a resident of the Caribbean, Sir Richard has experienced the challenges facing the region. He continues to lend influence to resilience-building initiatives such as the Caribbean Climate Smart Accelerator, one of the pivot partners. Sir Richard wanted to be here with us live this morning. However, an unavoidable conflict occurred. He did send you this message.
It's such a great pleasure to join you today for the opening of this pivot event. It's a great opportunity for all of us to learn about the brilliant work of the Caribbean Accelerator and to come up with new and exciting ways in which we can turn challenge into opportunity for the Caribbean and hopefully for all of humanity. The beautiful Caribbean is a place that I've been lucky to call home for many years. Living in the British Virgin Islands has taught me so much about the wonders of our natural world, but also about the vulnerability of our ecosystems. That's why I've been so committed to supporting a strong and resilient future for this region and its people. Having experienced the destructive force of Hurricane Irma, one of the strongest hurricanes in history, I've seen firsthand the impact climate change is having. By all accounts, these impacts are going to intensify in the coming years. So what we do now to change course will determine what kind of world we'll pass on to our children and grandchildren. And right here, right now, blessed with the greatest renewable resources our planet has on offer, we have an opportunity to choose a better way, to create a climate-smart blueprint for the rest of the world can follow, to build resilience and grow economies fueled by clean energy. All we need is a bit of entrepreneurial spark. I'm often asked about the best place to begin when you want to start your own business. And here is a simple answer: try to make people's lives better. And that's how we disrupted the aviation business. We made flying fun again. And that's how, and I'm delighted we went back to Barbados. And that's how we created a challenger bank that put the customer front and center. In fact, every Virgin business has been built out of the desire to reject the status quo and change business for good. In doing so, we've looked beyond conventional thinking, we've pushed boundaries, and we've asked ourselves, what is the best that we can do to make a positive difference in people's lives? Well, I'm mindful that these are extraordinary times. The COVID-19 pandemic has impacted every single business, large and small, unlike few other global crises. Many of these impacts have been devastating, in some cases existential. For many of you, navigating this challenging world with all of its uncertainties remains an ongoing challenge. But that's why events like Pivot are so important. The pandemic may have thrown a wrench into business plans and changed your outlook. But at the heart of it, that's what entrepreneurship is all about. Taking risks, overcoming adversity, adapting, embracing failure, and putting yourself up again. Just like my grandkids, when they fall over, learning to walk, they pull themselves up again. Anyway, I've never made it a secret of my optimism, and I think every crisis offers opportunity too. And there's lots of talk of a great reset, of building back better, and there isn't any reason at all that the Caribbean and its wonderful people can't be leading this from the front. There is so much that we can do together. Think about the potential that lies in weaning Caribbean islands off their costly dependency on fossil fuels. As an investor and entrepreneur, I've never seen a more compelling business case than the one presented by an energy transition that makes use of the abundance of the region's natural resources, like solar or wind. As I've said many times before, we don't have to ship sunshine. Some of you may think this is all too difficult and complex, that there are too many entrenched interests to fight, too much red tape to cut, too little real will. So what? None of this should deter us. And that's where moonshot thinking comes in. When Virgin Galactic set out on its journey to make private space travel a reality, many thought we wouldn't be able to do it. We suffered setbacks and accidents, and some of them were tragic. We knew that space is a difficult frontier to cross, perhaps the most difficult of all. But we never gave up on our vision, and 16 years and 2 successful space flights later, we are on the cusp of delivering on our promise. If we can do this, you can too. I remember our first test flight into space in December 2018. That day I said, when you set off on challenging and important adventures, exceptional people come forward to join the journey. People who are consistently by your side and on your side. People who share your dreams and people who help make them reality. Well, I really believe this event is the start of that journey for you. And I wish you all a productive and inspiring few days. And I look forward to seeing you in person for a proper drink. But in the meantime, cheers. Thank you.